edition of Backfire this year, and then we're going to take a week off next week. I believe we've all voted to take next week off because it was going to be pushing us a little bit, I think.
Is that with the same pay?
Yeah, it's with the same pay.
Same pay.
This is time off with pay now.
Well, with the same pay.
Same pay. You know, I don't know how many years have we been doing this now.
It's what, 3 or more?
3, 14, something like that.
It's more than that because we've had to go through 2 terms of Obama.
We went through the whole last election, 2012, so it had to be in.
So it's been over 4.
At least, yeah.
Oh, well.
Wow. Where does the time go?
I think, Daniel, what you need to do is go back to some of our old shows and cut back some of the stuff and play that back for our New Year's edition. The greatest hits, Backfire's greatest hits. Won't you go ahead and see if you can put that together? I'd like to hear the greatest hits, Backfire's greatest hits. John.
You can pull up my cussing.
Yeah, I got reprimanded for that last week too. So
Did you?
I apologize.
I get reprimanded regularly for it.
Yeah.
Our better halves.
Franklin's got a better half that'll reprimand. Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good, Franklin. She might straighten you up.
Yeah, I need all the help I can get. Believe me, I do.
I think this week we were going to talk about lies that was being told, but first let's talk about the broadband expansion. There's a thing in the Chattanooga Times this morning, and I guess our county government, voted to allow the possibility of allowing outside utility-based broadband providers such as EPB into the community.
In other words, the government. I mean, don't dress it up in fancy words like EPB and, talk about Cleveland Utilities being a, commercial entity. They're not. It's the government. Mm-hmm. So the government will now be in competition with private sources. Now, private sources that I will admit do a crappy job, don't provide good service.
Well, crappy sources who've largely had monopolies.
I agree.
So not really competing with anybody.
Fine.
So does that make them really a private source in that regard?
Yes, it does. That's the difference that I've argued all along, Franklin, about there's not a problem with capitalism. There's not a problem with big business. The problem is when big business gets in bed with big government, and they create these monopolies in order to get the support of that company.
Well, do you think this would... if PPB comes in, it will reduce the price of what we're paying?
No, why would it reduce the price?
I don't know, I'm asking.
It might slow price increases, though.
Well, let me ask a question. First off, one of the statements that was made was this is now a necessary service. People have to have it. Well, first off, they do have it. They don't have it as fast. You have dial-up. There's always been dial-up in these rural areas. So they do have access to the internet. It's what kind of access to the internet. But my biggest point about this is tell me a service that you couldn't make the same argument for government to do. That's how creeping socialism comes in. Mm-hmm. We make the argument for one thing, and then it moves to the next, and the next, and the next.
Comment by one of our commissioners was broadband is no longer a luxury, asserting that reliable internet services are a necessary utility for education and economic development.
Well, what's more important, education and economic development or food to survive on? How much economic development are you going to have if you're starving to death?
Well, tell me how you're relating that.
Is there a grocery store in McDonald? McDonald's one of the main communities that they talk about. Is there a grocery store in McDonald? Do those people have to drive into town to go to the grocery store?
Well, let's see. There was a big deal down there. They wouldn't even let a dollar store go down there.
Well, here's my point. Why doesn't the county government vote to put a government grocery store down there? Because they certainly need to eat, don't they?
That's right.
There's a lot of services that aren't in that community.
So what would you say, John? We ought to just get out of doing everything by government?
I think you ought to get out of as many things as you could that government shouldn't be doing.
So I will give John his props here for his consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think many people would agree with that statement. Everybody likes our government to be efficient.
And who draws the lines, though, Franklin?
Well, presumably the voters draw the
Well, let
line.
me ask you another question. Do you know what the most recent studies indicate on the movement in the internet industry is?
Movement. I don't know what you mean by movement.
Well, I mean, all of this stuff moves. You wanted dial-up because you wanted the internet. Well, then when you got dial-up, someone came along with the next step. Do you know where the movement is in the internet services providers?
No.
It's the phones. Most people, there's a study that shows most people who have access in their home are going to their cell phone-based
Sure,
access.
but they still use it off of, rather than their data plans, they use it off of Wi-Fi, which you need an internet service to do.
More and more are going, and that's where you'll see. And on top of that, what are we spending millions and millions of dollars doing down on the south end of the county right now? Steve, it's one of your big
Industrial
projects.
development.
The industrial.
All right, so how close to the McDonald community is that development going to be?
It'll be pretty close.
You think any of those companies will want internet in that area?
Sure.
Probably.
John.
Will they bring it in that area if they're going to open a
and-
business?
And I don't doubt that they will run it into that industrial park. I don't know that has anything to do with whether they'd run it
Absolutely,
into those
Franklin. That's how
neighborhoods.
development, that's how capitalism works. They will bring it into the area, and then they'll go, well, gosh, as long as we're in the area, let's pick up as many customers as we can. But once the government monopoly gets involved, you won't. And you admitted yourself the whole problem
How did
here,
it become a monopoly?
because EPB's a monopoly. Cleveland Utilities is a
Not
monopoly.
in internet service, it's not.
They're monopolies in and of themselves. And you are funding them. It's a government-funded business. My point is, Franklin, tell me one thing you couldn't make the same case for government to provide another service.
Well, there are some things, John, that arguably government does a better job at. Providing utility service to rural communities has traditionally been one of those things.
Well, this is a new branch for them, though, isn't it? This isn't.
Sure it is.
This is allowing them out
Sure it
into
is.
another area. I just look. We're supposed to be the most Republican county in the state, and we've got 12 out of 14 commissioners basically signing up for socializing the internet services to the county. So, if you're going to do it, at least be honest about what you're doing. Hey, I do believe in socialism when it has enough voters that'll vote for me over it.
Well, so I take it you're against the,
I am against it. It is government sticking their nose into an area that private industry, and I've said this, I've said it to the EPB guy, I've said it to Cleveland Utilities people. This is government meddling in private business.
Well, let's go back a little ways. When the cable service was here originally, and they wanted to expand the services or something, didn't they make a lot of promises
They did.
and so forth?
They did.
Do you think all those promises have been met?
No.
And what remedy does anybody have about that, given that they have a monopoly? Nothing.
No,
You can't say, I'm going to switch my service.
no, that's right. Well, you've got Dish and you've got
Now, you all are missing apparently you are missing the whole
No,
idea
we
of
aren't missing the
capitalism.
point. I get your point.
No, my point, you said you don't have any
I'm just
option.
saying,
You do have an
I'm
option.
saying the difference here is that the service we're getting now isn't being provided in a truly competitive mode.
I agree.
So the
fix
idea
that.
that
So
the
fix
idea
that. Don't
the
become
government doing it.
right.
Well, how do you
Right.
fix it,
But
John?
frankly,
Tell
the
me,
point is,
John, how do you
you're-
fix it?
Well, one is you get out of it. The government shouldn't have been in it in the first place.
I'm
That's
talking
part of
about
the problem.
How do you fix charter?
Well, one, charter gets bad enough. There's no option out there. Enough people get annoyed about it that some other company will come in. That's how innovation and capitalism works. When there's a high enough level of dissatisfaction, you've then created a market for a competitor. And once the government gets involved, what you will do is you will equalize everything. Everyone will have equality in mediocrity.
Well, okay. My internet service from that standpoint has gotten better over the years, not worse. So I don't know.
Do you have government internet?
No.
Then that is an
I
exact.
have internet service that uses government easements to be provided for.
Look, an easement is a different thing
It's
than
not.
yes, it
It's
is,
not
Franklin.
purely private competition.
An easement is
and
a different
the suggestion
thing.
that Charter or Comcast is a totally private entity from a competitive standpoint just flies in the face of reality.
Do they turn a profit, Franklin?
I don't know. I guess they do.
No, they're not supposed to turn a profit. So not only do they
They're
not
for-profit corporations.
and not only do they not have to turn a profit, but they're subsidized as well. And you just made my case, Franklin.
No, I
you don't
didn't.
have government subsidized internet, and yet you just admitted that your service has improved. That's how the capitalist market works. And it will
No,
work
the
in
technology
McDonald's.
improved.
Yes, because of capitalism. If the
Or
government...
science.
By
and
the
that's
way,
a novel
Franklin,
concept.
how much has the VA healthcare system improved over the years?
Arguably, over the last decade, it's gone backwards.
Why is that? Because the government
because of a whole host of new
No,
injuries
because
that they
the
weren't dealing
government
with
doesn't
before.
have to worry about satisfying anybody because it's the government.
The government, what I found about the government is it can't function anymore because there's nobody in charge. If you go over here and have a complaint about something, they've got to take it to their supervisor.
Well, the reason
Well,
there's
their
no one-
supervisor then has to take it to their
but
supervisor.
the reason for all of that, Steve, is because no one's going to get fired. No one's
That's
held
right.
accountable. But
There's-
guess what? If you run a private business
That's
and
right.
your division loses money, you're going to lose your job.
That's right. But government doesn't work
Government
that
doesn't
way.
have to do that.
That's right.
I mean, my point here is if you're going to be a commissioner or a state representative and you're going to support this, then just be honest and say, hey, in this particular case, I'm okay with socialism, because that's what this is.
Well, the Bradley County Commission voted 12-1 to urge legislator to help bring public utility broadband to Bradley County. 12-1.
And look, I'm sure I'll get hammered that I don't care about the people in McDonald. That's not it. I mean, if you do it for McDonald, you're going to let them expand into Polk County because they don't have access either. I mean, I understand, but guess what? Another thing about
EPB is in Bradley County
but
now.
I know, but let me ask another question. McDonald's a beautiful area in the county. Why do people choose to live in a more rural, isolated area of the county?
So they can listen to their cows moo.
Because they love living in a rural, isolated area. Well, guess what? There are pluses and minuses to everything. And if you choose to live in McDonald and you enjoy the beautiful setting down there and you enjoy the peaceful serenity down there, one of the downsides is you're not going to have as good an internet access.
Mm-hmm. EPB is expanded as far as Ottawa and McDonald, and it wants to march on into Bradley County. Now, EPB, Electric Power Board,
of
That's Chattanooga.
Okay, so they're already in
into
Ottawa and
a
McDonald.
portion of Bradley
Well, they
County.
were fighting originally,
Uh-huh.
but now they've worked a deal out with Cleveland Utilities. So now Cleveland Utilities and EPB are on the same page.
to make it happen. How's it working out in Chattanooga? Do you know?
Some people love it, some people hate it. Some people say the service down there is bad. My point is not, mine is just, I guess I appreciate, it's a philosophical point.
difference.
There is no, once you open a door like this, please tell me, I'd ask the county commissioners, tell me one essential service that you couldn't make the exact same argument for government to be involved in.
Well, Dan Rawls said, he said customer service by charter is appalling. If
It
it's
is.
not the worst, then it's the second worst in the United States. I am adamantly against letting them keep their monopoly.
I agree with that, but government is not the way to go with that.
How do you fix it then?
Well, you know, those are mistakes that have been made over several decades, some of it on the state level, some of it in the local level. I don't like when these local, I didn't like those deals when they started them because it was clear they were favoring one company over the other. And then they wonder why they get bad service. Well, because they created a monopoly. But my point is fix the monopoly. Don't put the government into the monopoly.
Well, I think the monopoly was invented, came to Cleveland and was part of the problem. And I think when Charter first came into Cleveland, they worked and did a contract with the city of Cleveland to provide all these services. And is anyone gone back? Could anybody go back, check that contract, and find out what they did and what they have not
Well,
done?
they know they didn't fulfill everything.
I guarantee they haven't fulfilled
Well,
it.
guess
That's
what?
where you start putting
If
pressure on
government didn't force a company to fulfill the first contract, why would we trust government to fulfill the next contract?
Yeah.
Hey, we screwed up. Give us another chance to screw up again.
Well, I've talked to people recently that can't afford the TV. It's gotten so expensive to watch television now. There are other sources. I mean, they're getting stuff off the internet.
Well, all of this stuff is
They're doing Netflix.
all of this stuff is evolving rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll give you a good example. When my wife was chairman of the education committee, and they were talking about doing the overhaul at Bradley High School, part of the plan, and it was millions of dollars, was to hardwire the computer lab at Bradley High School. Now, even back then, which has been, I think 6 or 8 years ago, even then, that was not the movement in the industry. And so she argued with him and said, why would you hardwire the computer lab when everything is going wireless? Why would you not go wireless, save the cost of hardwiring, and put all your routers in so that you can move these computer labs from room to room on mobile carts? Well, the answer back was, well, hey, this is what we planned several years ago when we first started talking about it, so we're just going to go ahead with it. That's typical.
I understand.
So right now, the current indications are most people in their homes are actually going to a wireless-based internet service.
There was something advertised the other day that got my attention, $19.95 for some kind of an antenna that you just screw on the back of your television set that will pick up television stations for you. And it was talking about it now available because the laws have changed where everything has to be digitalized and transmitted digitally. So they're able to pick this information up from this $19.95 antenna, and you're able to watch shows.
It's like the cable box.
Yeah.
Your modern televisions don't actually require that box.
When I lived in Memphis 20 years ago, the cable plugged directly into the back of my TV, and I had every channel I wanted.
It's a way for the cable company to get you to do their pay-per-view and all that stuff.
It's also a way to get $6 or $7 extra a month out of you for renting that box that you don't need.
Yeah.
But now I can tell you, I've had that direct, rather aggressive argument with them. Well, this is the current highest technology. You have to have that. I go, that's not true. I said, why do I buy a TV with a tuner in it then? Why don't I just buy a monitor? Because that's what the box is. It's a tuner. Well, why am I buying a TV with a tuner in it then?
Mm-hmm. What'd they say, John?
Nothing. They just look at you.
It took them, when they converted all this stuff, it took them about 6 months to get my televisions working.
I don't have it at the office anymore. I had cable for 20 years in the office for the patients to look at.
I could look up and see the moon. And
well, when they
TV
improved my service last October, I lost all of it.
You weren't going to buy a box for every television.
Well, I don't have anywhere to mount the box.
Yeah, I understand. There was a lot of companies that had to.
So, and I tell you, that's been interesting too. I've had pretty good arguments with them. All the while, their reply, as always, but we gave you better service. No, you didn't. You killed my service.
That's like these updates on computers and cell phones. They keep updating them. Every time they update one, they lose me. I go a little deeper in the hole because the updates are harder for me to keep up with than just leaving it alone. I'd rather leave it alone. I'm used to it the way it is.
I understand the commission. They want to help the people. They want to help people who don't have good access. I understand that. My problem is once you start down that road of government doing, services that private industry is and should be providing, there's no way to limit it on any kind of, if you're logical and if you're true to your logical argument, you can make that case. There's no barber in McDonald. The government should make sure and provide a barber down there in a grocery store.
The barbers are over there at the federal penitentiary still in school. That's where they have barber schools now. Anyway, let's change gears just a little bit and let's talk about.
What'd you make out of the polls that came out yesterday?
I don't know. Oh, I'm sure this must be something you want to talk about. What happened?
No, I think it's
don't
really
know. What
fascinating, really. I mean, Trump was at 39%, 39% in it. Cruz was at 18%. And the next, I think Carson was at 11 in it. And the people who've traditionally been the establishment candidates, if you will, Jeb Bush and Rubio and those folks combined came in at about 18%. So just a really fascinating dynamic. The thought has been, well, when some of these people drop out of the race, then they're going to congeal around the establishment candidate. But if you add all those people's up, they're still less than the Cruz and Trump numbers. I don't know. What do you make out of it, John?
Well, I mean, that poll's somewhat of an outlier because there's also some polls that show Trump and Cruz within 3 or 4 points of each other. There was another one that was 28 Trump and 24 Cruz. But look, I think one of the arguments not in Trump's favor, but at least explaining what's going on is when the president comes out and has one of only 3 of his Oval Office formal addresses and basically downplays the threat of ISIS right after we had an attack on U.S. soil and people were killed. And this is not me being partisan. Lots of Democrat strategists have said this too. Mm-hmm. He completely misread the American public. Well, Trump, although I don't necessarily think he's sincere on everything he's saying, he has locked into that unsettled feeling that a lot of people have. And even though he's harsh on some things and pretty hard-hitting on some things, he's at least connected with the raw emotion that people are scared. And I think the president is somewhat disconnected from that. And that's part of the reason you see these poll numbers for Trump continuing to go up, because a lot of them will say, well, I don't agree with him on everything, but he gets it. And I think that's a lot of it, is that they feel like he gets it.
Well, I think he gets it also. I think he's stating facts, John.
No, he's not. He's not stating facts.
I think he's stating facts.
He's pretty much fact-free.
No?
He is attaching to emotion.
Let's talk about some facts.
That's
then.
true.
How about Obama? Has he got facts?
No, he doesn't either.
How about Hillary? She got facts.
No.
What about Bernie?
But guess what? I didn't like them either.
Did you?
I like people that are factual.
Did you watch the Bernie and Hillary debate the other night?
I turned it on, but Hillary wasn't on stage, so I thought maybe she wasn't there.
That was the funniest debate. I didn't even know they were debating, and somehow I caught it in the flip of the channels. And I saw, here's a Democratic debate tonight. I didn't know anything about that.
Let me say something more in line with what Franklin was kind of, I guess, moving around with. I think the interesting thing has been the Republican establishment's realization. They've looked at Trump and they've said, someone's going to come up. Well, the funny thing about that is they thought someone that was going to come up was going to be Rubio or even Jeb. He had all the money and he was going to be the turtle that wins the race. I think they're now really shocked and somewhat upset that the person coming up is Cruz. The second person they're scared of in the race after Trump is Cruz.
Yeah.
So he's right. You've got a huge chunk of the electorate that thinks we need to go with someone that's different from Hillary. And I will have to say, I want to win. And so you always have a tendency to look at these demographic polls and go, well, we don't want to lose this group, we don't want to lose that group, so we'll moderate our points. Well, guess what? We did that with McCain in 08, and we lost. We did that with Romney in 12, and we lost. I do think there's a case to be made that let's at least give them a difference. Let's give them something to choose between.
We were going to talk about some of the lies this year, and I guess probably the
big one happened Saturday night.
What was it Saturday?
Well, Hillary made a distinct claim that ISIS was showing videos of Donald Trump as recruitment tools.
What about that?
Well, the fact checkers got into it, and they could not find a single video with Donald Trump. But the interesting thing is they did find a video with Bill Clinton in it. And he's actually in one of them labeled as an example of a fornicator and how morally bankrupt our country is.
Who do you think feeds her this kind of information? Who do you think fed her this to say? I mean, I don't think she's smart enough to figure it out for herself to even say it.
Well, when you've been in politics as long as she's been for decades now, 3 or 4 decades, and you've been able to lie and have the media basically either cover for your lie or when they can't cover for it to just bury it, then you get to where you don't think twice about lying. You know, she resurrected a new lie that she had told 20 years ago that was debunked 20 years ago.
What's that?
Well, she said she tried to join the Marines in 1974.
Yeah.
And that they wouldn't take her because she was too old and she was a woman. Well, now you've got Maureen Dowd, who's a liberal New York Times columnist, debunked that in 94 when she said it the first time. And now we've got a former, a retired woman Marine that said it was absolutely ridiculous. In 74, they had done away with the draft. They needed people. They desperately needed lawyers. So here was a Yale lawyer who had served on the House, on a House committee, applying, and she said that they didn't take her because she was too old. Well, the cutoff for recruitment of the Marines is 28 years old. She was 26. So that is a just complete lie that she told.
She's good at it, isn't she?
No, she's not good at it. She's not good at it, but when you have a media that will cover for you the way they have with her, then you don't have to be good at it.
What do you think is going to happen with this? I'm going to change this. We'll get into some more lies.
Let Franklin say a word.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Franklin. Go ahead. I didn't mean to
Well, I was
interrupt.
just going to quote what Hillary Clinton actually said, which is not quite what John said.
Okay, go ahead.
The quote is, "He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists."
There's no video of him.
Well,
There's no ISIS recruitment video of him.
That's not what it said. That's the difference.
Wait a minute. What did it
It
say?
didn't
then?
say there's a recruitment video.
What does it say?
It says they're showing videos of him insulting Muslims. Not that they've produced their own videos or anything. That's not what she actually
went on
said.
to say that they were using that for recruitment, did she not?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And lots of experts
But
have
so
said
far-
that every time that we make these comments like that they're being used to recruit.
Well, let me just
What do you
Wouldn't
think?
be just
well, to
him.
balance this, let me say what her campaign was forced to say. They actually admitted on Sunday that the candidate's claim was inaccurate. So her own
Well,
campaign admitted that it was inaccurate.
If you read it as having said that, I think that
That's
would be
not
true.
what her campaign said.
I just read the
I
quote,
know,
John.
but I'm telling you what her own campaign
Okay,
people
fine,
said. They
fine.
said she made an inaccurate claim. And by the way, just so
I don't
you
think the claim is inaccurate. What
well,
it
her own
says-
campaign said it was inaccurate. They admitted it was inaccurate.
I've seen multiple, not just Democrats, Republican members of the military in the past who've said that kind of rhetoric that he's using is going to bite us in the Middle East, and they're using that
That's
against
not
us.
what she said. And her own, John Podesta, her own campaign manager, admitted that it was inaccurate, but that she stood by the remarks because since he's on TV in the Middle East, it's likely, now this is what he said, the campaign manager, it's likely being used to inflame Muslims. By the way, there is an actual professionally produced ISIS recruitment video entitled No Respite, and it includes an image of Bill Clinton, who they call a fornicator.
Do you think that they're going to use the Rose Garden presentation of what's his name?
Bo Bergdahl.
Bo Bergdahl when Obama brought him in, his parents to the Rose Garden, made a big Rose Garden ceremony.
Called him a hero.
Yeah, made a hero out of him. Do you think that might have helped the
Taliban?
Yeah, Taliban. Do you think that?
Help the Taliban?
Yeah. Do
How?
you think that got him excited that a president of the United States was bowing down to him?
A man they know was a deserter and a traitor and put his own men at risk was then celebrated in the Rose Garden of the Oval Office?
I doubt that, but you know, there's a group that monitors the social media activities of these Islamic terrorist groups, and this is their statement about it. They love him. from the sense that he is supporting their rhetoric. They follow everything he
You talking
said.
about Obama?
No, Trump.
Oh.
And who's this saying this?
It's called the Site Intelligence Group. All they do is monitor these sites to provide information. Says when he says no Muslims should be allowed in America, they tell people, "We told you, America hates Muslims. Here's the proof." That's what we're talking about here.
I don't,
It's a
do
fair
you
thing to
remember
discuss.
Trump saying those things in the 90s when they blew up the World Trade Center the first time?
No.
Or when they hit the barracks in Lebanon?
No.
Or when they sank the coal? What caused it then, Franklin?
I'm sorry,
What caused the terrorist attacks then? What caused the Iranians to take over our embassy in 1979?
Our support for the despot that was murdering and torturing their citizens?
The
Maybe.
despot. You mean
The Shah of Iran?
The Shah
The
who
one who we propped
educated
up?
women, who allowed free
No,
enterprise.
that would be the one that we installed and overthrew a democratically elected president in Iran. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that, Franklin. I also
mean, that's
remember
the
that
point.
life in
And that-
Iran
and
under the
that's-
Shah
and
had
that's the point.
freedoms.
That's the point here, though. No, there weren't freedoms.
Franklin, women were
They were scared to
educated.
death.
He was basically a secular leader. He was not a
The
religious
point
fanatic.
The point here is that
My
I
point
wish,
is it's been going on.
wish that your party would accept
All right,
the idea
all right.
that there are long-term consequences for
Okay.
the actions besides just
All
short-term.
right, well, let me ask you another question then,
and
Franklin.
we haven't gotten the long-term ones done very
was
well
Donald
for 40
Trump
years.
was Donald Trump to blame for the 1803 Tripoli pirates that Jefferson sent the Marines to kill? Because that's how long we've been, as a nation, been at war with Islam. 1803. You might want to read up on that.
Well, actually, the Christian West has been at war with Islam for hundreds and hundreds of years before that.
Yeah, you're right, because the Muslims invaded the Christian territories and conquered them and took all of the land.
Didn't that start
And
with
they
us
tore down
invading
the synagogue.
with
No, it didn't, Franklin. We were there
the
first.
Crusades? You don't remember those?
Yes, I do, Franklin. Maybe you want to look 300 years before the Crusades and see that the reason we were having to run the Muslims out of the Middle East was because they invaded, killed all of the Christians, and took it over. And the reason these sites are dually holy is because in the Quran, it actually instructs the Muslims to desecrate the holy sites and to build their temples on the very same site. So the whole idea that these are dually holy sites is a crisis created by the Muslims in the first place.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break and come back with the biggest lies of 2015. We'll be right back.
He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists.
She just made it up. I mean, she made it up. It was a soundbite.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title, only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum, based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy or sell or pawn today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
Hey Whoopsters, this is Johnny B. Jonesy, and I'm located at the Check in the Cash off Treasury Drive. That's next to the new Walmart, right between Cato's and the Tandy Company. Come visit me if you're in a financial pinch. We offer products all the way up to $425 on our payday advances, $2,500 on our title loans, and $4,000 on our line of credit. That offers the lowest rate guarantee when we buy out titles anywhere, anytime. And that is 2314 Treasury Drive, Cleveland, Tennessee. And that number, 423-585-1000. 888-479-2166. New customers, mention Whoop FM and get cash back on your first loan. That's checking the cash. Ka-ching!
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
Hello, my name is Andy Figglestaller with Ed Jacobs & Associates. We are an employee benefit and insurance broker in business for the past 20 years. The new healthcare law, also known as Obamacare, has finally arrived. The law is complex and the choices are confusing. You have questions, we have the answers. It is our passion to find cost-effective solutions for every client. The solutions will be different for every person or business. Let our knowledge, experience, and passion go to work for you. Contact us today and let us assist you through this process. Our phone number is 423-473-0202, or you can find us on the web at edjacobs.com.
Tired of carrying around cash in your pocket and tired of banks? Visit usmoneycard.com and get your prepaid debit card to use wherever MasterCard is accepted. It's a smart and safe alternative to carrying cash, and it's convenient. Even if you have a bill that requires a check, US Money Card has that too. Visit usmoneycard.com today and find out how to get your reloadable prepaid debit card. Log on, load up, and love your US Money Card. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
Train Endurance Engineers are an elite group of extremely devoted individuals who stop at nothing to push our heating and cooling units to the brink. That way, when they pick up the pieces, they'll know exactly how to make the Train we install in your home even more reliable. Right now, their target is a Train AC unit.
Testing control. Fire up the pitching machine.
Their methods may seem unconventional,
Okay, cue the jackhammers.
but it's because of their tireless efforts that it's hard to stop a Train.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installations for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a Train. Really hard.
This is Teresa Gilbert from the Village Bake Shop in Cleveland, Tennessee. Do you have a birthday, wedding, or anniversary coming up and want that perfect cake? Need some donuts to sweeten up your coworkers? Want to surprise your sweet thing with a bag of cookies? Then come on over to the Village Bake Shop. Family operated since 1961. The Village Bake Shop is your first and last stop for fresh baked goods that will feed your sweet tooth. The Village Bake Shop located at the Village Green Town Center. The phone number here is 423-476-5179. See you soon.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper. Family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back live in the studio. I guess we need to talk about Hillrygate or Mailgate or whatever.
Mailgate?
Hillrygate. What, the mail scam? Is that the biggest scandal of the year?
Email?
Yeah, the email.
Well, there's tons of lies on that.
I mean, there's like
we're up to 1,000 emails now with national security clearances, and 2 of them are labeled top secret, at least 2.
Well, I mean...
And they were labeled at the time she was transmitting them.
So, it's been proven those were lies?
Absolutely.
Do you think those were lies, Franklin?
Not that
she was
I've
just
seen
lying
thus
about
far.
her... About her...
Franklin, did she say there was not a single classified email sent?
First of all,
did she say that?
First of all, let's keep some perspective.
Oh, you're going to go into a definition of classified,
No,
aren't
not
you?
a definition at all. The perspective is there's not a single shred of evidence thus far, even from the Republican side, that any emails got out to a place they weren't supposed to go.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, there it is
You're
what we're
changing
talking
the
about.
subject. That is
No,
not
that's
what we're talking about.
perspective here. That's the huge scandal we're talking about. I agree with you. I have told you repeatedly that it was a bad instance of judgment on her part
That's
to
not what
have
we're
the
talking
private
about
server.
either. So, my original question, did she say not
There
a
are
single...
2 emails thus far.
There's 1,000.
There are 2 emails thus far that one organization is now reporting, or in fact now classified as top secret. There is a question.
How many were classified?
Oh,
over 1,000.
Okay.
And did she say top secret? No.
Okay.
What she said was there was not a single classified email that transmitted over my server.
Okay.
Did she say that?
Something along those lines.
Is there now at 1,000 mark? Are they?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Well,
but I'm going to go back to what I said. There's got to be some
all right,
perspective
so let me ask,
at some point.
Was she lying or is she incompetent? Because those are your 2 choices.
Those are my options?
Absolutely,
No, it's not my
Franklin.
options.
If you say not a single one and we're up to 1,000 now, you're either lying or incompetent.
Well, John, every email, if you use your definition, is classified.
That's not true. See, Franklin, you're playing these word games. This has all been determined by first off, it's not the department receiving the email, it's the department that generated it that determines that. And the Department of Defense and the CIA and the NA, they've all said they were classified emails from the get-go. So she is either lying or incompetent.
A number of those that you referred to, when they reviewed them and went through the process, were determined not to be classified.
She told Trigality that 90 to 95% of her emails were in the state system.
And that wasn't-
Where did she get that figure from?
Nobody knows.
Nobody has a clue about it. She also claimed that no classified information was in her private emails, which was quickly shown to be a lie.
How about the gay marriage backtracking lie that she told?
Now, that is actually a fair criticism.
Well, let me give you the...
No, I think that's an accurate statement.
So she did lie there. You'll admit to that.
I think that, well, whether she was intentionally lying or not, I don't know, but I think what she said was demonstrably false.
Well, now, let me give you the exacts. He's talking about the concept. I'm actually talking about the exacts. She said that the reason that Bill supported DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, was because there was momentum at the time to amend the Constitution for a traditional marriage
I'm agreeing
amendment.
with you, John.
The Washington Post found, quote, little public evidence that Democratic lawmakers decided to vote for DOMA because of the threat of a constitutional
and
amendment.
as I
No
said-
such amendment was ever proposed.
As I said, I think that's an accurate statement on your part.
So-
I think that was
a confirmed lie.
Which then means that if someone chose to be rude and publicly call her a liar, they would actually be correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Well, it is interesting. What was that was also reported on PolitiFact, by the way. What was their #1 lie of the year?
Hands up, don't shoot.
No, it was not.
Benghazi attacks were in response to a video. That's the biggest lie of the year, I think.
No.
What do you think it is?
Donald Trump's claim that there were thousands of Muslims in New Jersey cheering when 9/11 fell down, who's been denied by both Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie.
Let me support him a little bit like he supported me. I do think that was not true what he said. However, in the New York Times. There were actual investigative reports that there were people. I think the lie there was the thousands word.
Well, actually, what he said was he saw them.
That's true.
Hundreds.
But there were reports in the New York Times that people were cheering, and the public remembers that in other countries there were thousands of Muslims gathered cheering.
And that's probably videos
So
that were showing them cheering.
his underlying point was
New Jersey
there's
has
a problem with Islam.
Well, New Jersey has the second largest Muslim population in America.
Okay.
And for him to suggest that, when in fact there's no evidence to support that, and he clearly did not see that, which is what he said.
He didn't see it, I agree.
It wasn't that he said, I saw a story on television or I read it in the paper. He claimed to have personally witnessed it. So, yeah, I think that rises to that level because I think it has the potential to create more problems for us.
Well, let's talk about Benghazi attacks were in the response to a video.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Was that proven to be a
we
lie?
talked about this last week.
She didn't say that.
Well, you have 4 family
never
members
said
that
that.
said she said it to him point blank. So either 4 family members of deceased.
All I can give
honorable
you
servicemen-
is the public statement she made on national television, and she never said that.
Actually, she did, Franklin. At the ceremony in the hangar when the coffins came, she said, and people are being attacked because of an awful internet video that we had nothing to.
People were attacked in other countries.
After they brought the video up,
It just wasn't
they
in Benghazi.
created that attack. The White House is the one that actually put the video out there.
There were attacks in other countries on that day in response to that
you have
video.
4 family members who are either lying or she's lying because they say she looked them dead in the eye and said, this was because of the video and we're going to get the guy that made the video. Now, are you calling them liars?
No, I'm not.
Well, one of them's lying, Franklin.
No, I'm
Either they're lying or she's
All
lying.
I am telling you is that she came out and gave multiple statements on national television, and she never once in those statements said it was attributable to
All
that
right,
video.
how do you define a lie of omission?
A live omission is one where you create one idea by what you don't say.
All right. So when Susan Rice went on the talk shows and 5 different times on one Sunday morning said it was because of the video, the Secretary of State, the highest ranking diplomatic official in the administration, did she correct that?
She came out the next day and gave a statement that said something else.
She didn't correct it. They pushed it for 2 weeks, Franklin, and the highest diplomat in the administration never corrected it.
Okay.
And you have 4 family members that say she looked them dead in the eye and said it to them.
And I'm just repeating again, John.
Well, I'm perfectly capable of telling the American voter out there, you decide whether Hillary Clinton, who has a history of lying, Franklin's already admitted one lie on her part this morning, is lying, or 4 grieving family members all misheard the same thing at 4 different times.
I love this one that Hillary started arguing that all this controversy about her emails wouldn't have ever happened if she hadn't said that she wanted to make her emails public in the first place. In other words, that she voluntarily made her emails public.
No, she made her, and that was a lie. You're right, because the only reason she released them when she did was because there were 5 Freedom of Information Act requests that were about to have them turned over
And
anyway.
she knew that. So there was another lie. She likes it. She got into telling old lies when she.
Well, the Marine Corps
yeah.
was an old lie from '94 that she told. And don't forget the "I was shot at on the tarmac in Afghanistan" lie that video surfaced showing her getting off the plane, waving to people with absolutely no fight, no fires, no nothing going on. Franklin, she never even was made to answer for that one. And you had actual video proof that wasn't true.
Well, this will be a very fascinating conversation to have after you guys elect Donald Trump.
Well, one, I'm not sure we're gonna do
who
that.
you've told us
Well, one thing about
traffic and facts.
One thing about Trump already.
What's that?
I think he's
He
going to
made his claims made 4 of the top 10.
I think Trump's going to be able to get along with our foreign leaders a little better
You think
than
so,
our
huh?
Secretary of State could ever
He
get
and his buddy
accomplished.
Vlad.
Putin already likes Trump.
I probably wouldn't make that argument real strong.
Oh no!
No, I think
Let me
it's
tell
great.
you something. You can say a lot you want, but what we can say for sure is it's been said that the Clintons have a lot of ego. They don't have nearly as much ego as Donald Trump. Nobody does.
Well, actually, I think the president's probably tops
Nobody
in the ego
does.
department.
Do what?
I think the president's tops in the egotistical department.
Yeah.
Terribly egotistical man. You know, this interview he gave just this past week before he left for vacation, which, by the way, Franklin's working, I'm working, Daniel's working, Steve's retired, but the president is flown to Hawaii on vacation again. But he came out and basically said the reason that the public didn't understand this ISIS thing was it was the media's fault for hyping the threat too much. This man never takes responsibility for anything. I mean, how much better would the American public feel in general and towards him and his administration if he had just come out and said, you know what, guys, I'm a little bit insulated here with my security details and all, and maybe I didn't grasp how worried the American public is. I'm sorry.
Actually, that is what he said.
After
he didn't say that he was insulated.
But then
He said, I
blamed-
didn't do a good job on that.
Right, but then he blamed the media. But what he said was the public shouldn't be this upset. There's not that much threat. Now you've got, at the same time he was giving that interview, his own people were testifying before Congress that the threat was highest it had been since 9/11. His own people. Matter of fact, you've got Chuck Hagel now saying...
As has been pointed out, John, a lot more people have been killed by white extremists in the United States in the last 24 months than by Muslims.
Actually,
but we're not
that's
up in the
true
air
either.
about that.
If you want to discuss those statistics, we'll discuss it, Franklin. For example, the boy Dylan Ruth down in South Carolina, they've labeled him as a white Christian extremist.
Well, he is a white man.
He was
right?
Christian only because he wasn't another religion, but he didn't attend the church.
The point being,
no,
John,
the point is
they
were not
a threat.
No. They're not. That is a lie that you all are pushing on the public to try and not have to deal with the fact that your president has made the terrorist threat much, much worse in the world. Because here's the difference, Franklin. Dylan Roof, for example, the guy out in the Planned Parenthood shooting, which I'm not sure really surrounded Planned Parenthood, despite the two statements that he's made. He's crazy. He's not a religious extremist. He didn't go to church. He wasn't motivated by any kind of Christian formulation. Dylan Ruth in South Carolina, not motivated by any kind of Christian formulation. He was just a crazy racist. The Muslim terrorists are motivated by that faith. Now, it may be a bastardization of that faith, and if it is, then the good Muslims need to stand up and say that.
That's right. Let's talk about some more lies.
Off of your list, you mean?
Yeah, Chelsea Clinton was jogging around the World Trade Center on 9/11 when it was bombed. Comes to find out she was safely in her Union Square apartment at the time of the attack.
Well, you've got a lie from Gallup, from the president, in his State of the Union address when he said that the unemployment rate was 5.6%. Gallup says effectively, now it is technically 5.6, but Gallup actually came out and said effectively that's a lie. Because the underemployment, and the people, like if you've quit looking, you're not counted in that number.
She landed under sniper fire in Bosnia.
And video surfaced showing her getting off with no sniper fire.
She was named after Sir Edmund Hillary, one of the first two men to climb Mount Everest. This is Sir Hillary didn't actually climb Mount Everest. What? Until she was 6 years old. Her family was dead broke when they left the White House.
Just signed a, $13 million book deal?
$12 million. I guess.
Well,
if they were used to living off the taxpayers, so I guess maybe they were broke. They couldn't get along.
Well, the president also made the claim that 97% support climate consensus in climate change. Then he bumped it to 99.5%. Well, it turns out, one, nobody can find anything showing 99.5, and the 97% came from Australian study that has now been debunked by the very authors of the studies that they were claiming to have reviewed.
Well, it's not been debunked
It
because
has.
it's all above 90%.
No, I'll read it to you, Franklin. It has been debunked. Matter of fact, it was so bad that the college the guy's name is Cook. The college, University of Queensland, when they first started trying to look into the data, they actually threatened to sue anybody who used the data. Well, guess what? The whole point of a scientific study is it has to be repeatable in order to be valid. Well, if you're going to sue people for even looking at your study, you obviously don't want them to know whether it's repeatable or not. So the 97%, let me see if I can, they actually talked to several of the skeptics who are listed as being supportive, and they all said, this is not an accurate representation of my paper. So out of the nearly 12,000 papers that the Cook team evaluated, only 65 actually endorsed Cook's position, which makes it less than 0.97%.
Multiple studies published in peer-reviewed scientific journals show that 97% or more of actively publishing climate scientists
look it
agree.
up. I'm telling you where the 97% came from. It came from University of Queensland. The professor's name was Cook. And what they did was, it was a subjective thing. They looked at the 12,000 papers. They only picked a third of them. And out of the third, his team decided whether it supported or didn't support climate change. So it was a subjective decision. Well, they went and actually asked some of the authors who he labeled as supportive, and those authors said, no, my study did not support climate change. But Steve, let's get to the probably one of the most consequential lies outside of Benghazi, because Franklin's going to argue that, she covered her tail with a definition of is.
All right,
the Michael Brown is a significant thing to talk about. The Washington Post labeled that as one of their biggest lies of the year, and people died over that lie. And the worst of it is that we had black staffers from the Democratic congressional and Senate offices walk out on the steps of the Capitol in their $1,000 top coats and their nice leather gloves and put their hands up for photo ops. None of them have retracted that. None of them have apologized for participating in that lie. We had NFL players going out on the field doing the hands up, don't shoot. None of them have had to retract that or apologize for their lie.
Do you think that is, do you think that's created a large racial problem?
Absolutely.
Created?
It's exacerbated it.
Yeah. It fueled it.
By the way, let me give this. This was in the American Thinker, which is really a libertarian post, but it was an interesting concept on this.
I didn't know you read those things.
It talked about how the Washington Post gave the 4 Pinocchios to this lie, but then it went on to talk about how the Washington Post covered that very story all year, and they said the interesting thing about the Pinocchios was they didn't talk about their complicity in the story. For example, this year alone, the Washington Post published the terms "hands up, don't shoot" almost 700 times. So they're calling it the biggest lie of the year, and yet they covered it and gave it publicity 700 times this year. Well, keep in mind that in, March or April of this year is when we found out it wasn't true. For sure. We knew, a lot of people knew it wasn't true to begin with, but the actual Obama Justice Department report came out in March or April, and yet the Washington Post has the gall to say it's the biggest lie, but they were one of the biggest perpetuators of the lie.
What do you think about Bernie had the hands up, don't shoot people come take the microphone away from him and start talking? He just let them talk. Trump had them hauled out of there when they came in on him. There's a difference in leading.
Well, as I said, I do think that's one of the things that people are reacting to Trump. They do see him as decisive. Now, I tend to think that there's better choices in the field.
What do you think the biggest lie of the year has been so far? For 2015, the biggest lie. I'll let both of you answer. It's taking you a long time to answer this one.
Well, we traffic in the political world here, so there's lots
to choose.
And I don't mean that in a partisan way. John's going to say, oh, well, the Democrats said this, and I'm going to say these Republican candidates said this. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know.
I think the most harmful lie was the Benghazi lie.
Well, let me say
the video. I think that was a harmful.
But that was in 2012.
Well, I'm sorry,
but it's perpetuated.
What's happened to Rice since that?
Nothing. Matter of fact,
I mean, where has she disappeared to? I hadn't seen her, heard from
well,
her.
every time she's on the TV, she actually creates another problem.
So they've got her off TV for a while.
I tell you, I think I would probably say one of the biggest lies, simply because of the numbers, was, and this is, to be honest, this shouldn't be a Republican-Democrat thing, because there are good Democrats that do believe that life begins at conception. So I think one of the biggest lies was the telling that Planned Parenthood provides mammogram and essential health services, and that's a lie. We now know they don't provide any of that. They provide referrals, but they don't provide any of that.
They pay for it.
No, they
Yes,
don't. They actually don't, Franklin. I'll read it to you. They don't. First off, HHS Secretary Burwell told the House Education and Workforce Committee, what I think is important is that our HH funding is focused on issues of preventive care for women, things like mammograms. Well, her own staff confirmed that they do not provide any mammograms. There's no mammogram machine in any Planned Parenthood clinic. The Washington Post doled out 3 out of 4 Pinocchio ratings for the White House mammogram lies. The problem here, and this is the Washington Post, is that Planned Parenthood does not perform mammograms or even possess the necessary equipment to do so. And they don't pay for it. Instead, they provide referrals and direct low-income women towards resources to help pay for the procedure. And that's the same thing that the Susan G. Komen Foundation does and the American Cancer Society does. And the reason I say that's the biggest lie is that lie was told to keep people from looking at the truth of the undercover videos of Planned Parenthood, and to keep from dealing with the fact that Planned Parenthood murders close to 500,000 babies every year with taxpayer funding.
What's your biggest lie of the year, Franklin? What do you think the biggest lie of the year has been?
I would have to say clearly the one that proved to be the biggest lie was that we're all going to die from Ebola because of the president's policies.
Now, which one was that? I'm not even sure.
You don't remember? Oh my God, he brought this patient in from
oh yeah,
it's going to be terrible. We're all going to die from Ebola. Nobody.
Well, the problem with that, though, that's not really fair to label that a lie, Franklin, because there is a look.
I label that
healthcare stuff.
I structure that stupidity.
Well, not just that. There's a certain level.
It was an
of
overwhelming
risk.
success.
But there's a level of risk here, and the question is always, how much risk are you willing to employ?
You just asked me what my.
Well, I'm just
candidate is. That's my candidate.
That's a lie.
We're looking for a lie.
You can say that was a mistake, that they were wrong, and you're right. They were wrong. It turned out. But the point is, the consequence, had they been right, could have been dire.
The biggest lie ever, we've got to go, we're running late, but the biggest lie ever, I think, is global warming.
Absolutely.
Hey, 75 degrees this Christmas. Woo! Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon.